Senator Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Understood. I was waiting for our good friend, the Minority Leader, to stand up and kind of kick off the debate and question us on the subject of the bill pending before us, understanding that we have an amendment to get through. But I do want to offer a few remarks, Mr. President, on the underlying matter. And before I do that, I should apologize with my Boston accent. Of course, this is a bill about vehicles, so a few times I will say the word car, and you may not catch it, but I apologize. I asked my staff if they could change every reference to a car to vehicle to make it easier to understand. But, Mr. President, this bill before us, S-2945, an act modernizing protections for consumers in automobile transactions. First, want to just begin my comments by thanking a few people that are responsible for getting this to the floor today. It truly has been a collaborative matter. First off, our Attorney General in the Commonwealth, Attorney General Andrea Campbell, who is a co-filer of the original bill. I want to also thank the gentleman from Lawrence, the chair of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure, for his work in vetting this bill and moving it swiftly to the floor. Also the chair, Ways and Means, to my good friend from Westport, and to our Senate President, who's been leading on consumer protection issues, not only this session, but in each of the sessions under her purview. We have been acting swiftly on matters of consumer protection, so I'm thankful to her and her team especially. Also want to thank the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation, known as OCABA in the Commonwealth, and MassPIRG, especially, who's been supporting this legislation each and every session, and our champions for consumer protection. Last session, Mr. President, the Senate passed almost the exact same piece of legislation which pens before us today, and I'm grateful that we're once again coming together to adopt these foundational upgrades to protections for consumers when buying a used vehicle or leasing a vehicle in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Other than a home, Mr. President, the purchase of a vehicle is typically the most significant purchase a resident of the Commonwealth will make. A vehicle is an essential tool for many, and a necessary cost of living which so many working class families especially rely on every day across the Commonwealth. That monthly car payment cuts out a big chunk of our paycheck, not to mention the insurance costs that are quickly escalating. Today, more and more people are turning to purchase a used vehicle because these days, those cars, new cars are lasting longer than ever before, and used cars can rival the cost of a brand new vehicle even today. So when you drive the car off the lot, you expect it to run well, be safe, operate for a long, long time with little or no need for repair as you drive it off that lot, right? Well, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we have strong laws for consumer protection regarding the purchasing or financing of a new vehicle. This is the so-called Lemon Law, which we all know about. There are gaps in our consumer protection laws, however, when it comes to the purchase of a used vehicle, as well as gaps in vehicle leases and consumer protections. These gaps, at times, are being taken advantage of by some unscrupulous car dealers who know how to navigate existing loopholes to skirt the rules and, quite frankly, rip off Massachusetts consumers of their hard-earned savings that they've set aside for the major purchase of a vehicle. And I want to qualify that, Mr. President, by saying some unscrupulous. We know the majority of vehicle dealers here in Massachusetts do the right thing. This is a small minority, yet it affects a lot of consumers in Massachusetts. We take steps today to close these gaps in this bill. Attorney General Campbell, like I said, is a co-presenter of this legislation and is working hard on behalf of consumers every day as our consumer advocate. Through the Attorney General's Consumer Advocacy and Response Division, or COD, assistance for automobile purchases is the #1 consumer complaint that the office receives in terms of requests for assistance and intervention. That's why we filed this bill, the #1 consumer complaint to that division. This legislation, Mr. President, makes targeted changes to 4 different consumer protection elements of buying or leasing a used car. So you want to buy a used car or lease a vehicle. You do your research, you go to a dealership, you pick out your make and model, hopefully of a nice American-made car. You go for a test drive, you kick the tires, you negotiate a fair price, you close that deal, and you get your keys. But what happens when that used vehicle is not properly inspected or functional at the time of purchase? What if it's a so-called lemon once it rolls off the lot? Well, I mentioned in Massachusetts for new cars we have the lemon law. Protections for used vehicles is similar but it's distinct, commonly known as the lemon aid law. And Mr. President, that's two words, not one word. Like the Beyonce album, it is lemon aid, not lemonade. It gives the consumer 7 days to obtain a full refund if the used vehicle fails inspection. But the Attorney General's office, and I'll say that many of our municipalities have come forward to say that they've had constituents, they've had consumers who go to purchase a used car, they think they have the 7 days, but they've noticed that some dealers will have administrative delays or dealers taking advantage of this provision by holding on to that vehicle for a variety of different reasons for an extended period of time after the purchase, or even delaying delivery for the full 7 days until the clock actually runs out. This bill just makes a simple change to close this loophole, further protecting consumers from losing their hard-earned money when they close a deal on a used vehicle, and there are no delays through no fault of their own. Instead of starting the clock on the purchase date, we just make one simple change that the consumer would have until 7 days after the delivery date of the vehicle to obtain a full refund if the used vehicle fails an inspection. It's a simple word change, but it makes a huge impact. So now what happens if through no fault of your own you suffer a financial loss after purchasing a used vehicle due to the actions of the dealer, such as a failure on the dealer's part to provide certain documentation or accurate information about the sale? This bill, again, fixes that by increasing the surety bond required by the dealer to $50,000 in order to adequately reimburse consumers for the cost of the vehicle in case of a loss. Surety bonds offer a way for consumers who suffer a financial loss as a result of the dealer's own actions to obtain recourse. One quick story, Mr. President, on this piece. In 2022, WHDH News reported on a Massachusetts mom who paid more than $9,500 for a used SUV. But when the car arrived, it came without proper paperwork and soon stopped working altogether. She did all the right things. She requested a refund, the dealer took back the vehicle, and the dealer cut her a refund check. But when Kristen went to cash the check, it bounced. The dealership had closed, and the owner conveniently just disappeared. This individual is one of more than a dozen customers who went to court seeking refunds. However, there wasn't enough money in the fund to fully repay everyone. The current surety bond statutory requirement is currently $25,000. This is no longer adequate in this day and age to cover costs associated with compensating consumers that are stuck with inoperable vehicles and significant loan payments should that cost of the vehicle exceed this limit, which they all do too often these days. Additionally, this legislation, Mr. President, removes the requirement for a court-ordered judgment to obtain a claim against the bond, allowing the consumers to appeal directly to the insurance company that executes the policy. This legislation, Mr. President, also upgrades the used vehicle warranty laws in the Commonwealth to better reflect longer-lasting used vehicles. So what if, after purchasing a used vehicle, you notice a manufacturer's defect that requires repair, but is through no fault of your own? Well, our current warranty law in Massachusetts only covers vehicles with 125,000 miles or less at the time of purchase. I can remember back in the day buying my first car. If you had 125,000 miles on that car, it was probably the end of its life, and it was time to start looking or start walking or get a bus pass or something. But nowadays, it's different. We know that cars are lasting longer, well more than 125,000 miles. For many, they buy 125,000 miles and, you know, it's had one owner and it's in great condition. That's just the way cars are these days. So if you purchase a vehicle with more than 125,000 miles under current law, or cross this threshold during your own ownership of the vehicle and encounter a manufacturer's defect, you might be out of luck and out of pocket. Just check the classified ads or look for cars that are on sale online. What did it used to be? The old want ad. You'd look at the want ad, right, and you'd find cars, and honestly, if it was 125,000 miles, like I said, you know, it used to be that was the end of its life. That's no longer like that. You look at the classified ads now, and a lot more commonly, you'll see that you can find a secondhand vehicle, often just one owner, for 150,000 or 200,000 miles or more, with a lot of useful life left in that car. Vehicles are lasting longer than ever, and we know it's for a variety of reasons, including new technology. We know that the way that they're building these cars, they sustain a lot more life in them, and it's just the way of the world these days. We know that they're lasting a lot longer. On top of that, Mr. President, we know that cars spiked, the cost of new cars spiked during the pandemic. Everybody remember that shortage we had in the chips, and everybody was paying crazy amounts of money, including me when I bought my car, because of the shortage of the microchips. This further solidified quality used vehicles as a healthy alternative to new cars. And the prices of these vehicles today still reflect this fact. Under the current color of law, a vehicle with over 125,000 on the odometer at the sale of the car is considered too high risk to qualify for lemon law. But like I said, this doesn't reflect the current practice of cars driving far in excess of 125,000 miles and are for sale right now in the Commonwealth. Mr. President, this bill will also benefit consumers by giving additional coverage periods after the time of purchase to protect them against unforeseen repairs that are no fault of their own and should be covered under warranty. If you can't guarantee the car will last at least 30 days after purchase, you probably shouldn't sell it. Within these tweaks to the existing used vehicle warranty limits, a consumer can tell the dealer about a problem within that time period and give them opportunity to fix the problem or obtain a refund. Finally, Mr. President, we saw an opportunity to address consumer protection shortfalls for those who lease a vehicle by extending the retail installment contract notice and enforcement protections to lease agreements for motor vehicles, where none currently exist. When it comes to leasing a vehicle, which many consumers find to meet their needs more than the traditional purchase of a vehicle, especially a lot of people working from home and they're able to stay under a certain mileage, we're seeing a lot more people leasing vehicles. Lessees do not have the same consumer protection rights as purchasers, meaning they could face vehicle repossession without notice or opportunity to address a missed payment. Imagine that, and this has happened many times, and we heard from a few people who reached out that this happened to them. Without notice, no warning or opportunity to respond, your leased vehicle can be taken from you, meaning you have no way to get the kids to school, to get yourself to work, to get to a medical appointment, to even go buy groceries. In 2021, WCVB Channel 5 reported a story about a woman who drove her leased car to a local Massachusetts park to go on a hike. When she came back to the lot expecting to see her car there, it was missing, including all her belongings inside of it. This woman was even up to date in her car payments, but due to an administrative mistake, the leasing company thought she was months behind in her payments and repossessed her car without notice. No warning and no opportunity to mitigate this mistake that the company made. It's a real story. It happened to one of our constituents in Massachusetts, and it shouldn't happen again. If you have the right to cure and to make amends to keep your purchased car, then you should also have the right under a lease. Mr. President, I was remiss to also mention the underlying warranty periods for a warranty for a used car is updated in this law. The bill proposes under 50,000 miles, 90 days or 3,750 miles, whichever comes first. That is up from 40,000 miles. We update from 50,000 to 100,000 miles. Current law is 40,000 to 80,000 miles in that tranche. 60 days or 2,500 miles. And from 80,000 to 125,000 miles, we update that from 100,000 to 175,000 miles for 30 days or 1,250 miles. That increases the total mileage maximum to 175,000 miles, as I mentioned, and makes additional adjustments to underlying warranty periods. Once again, to more accurately reflect cars in 2026 compared to when this was placed in the statute. Mr. President, the fact that these laws and surety bond statutes, repossession language hasn't been changed or updated in so many years is not due to oversight or carelessness by anyone. It's just due to technological innovation. And like many things that we do in this chamber, we just have to keep up with the times. We have to update. Cars are lasting longer. That's it. Period. End of sentence. We know they are. Cars are lasting longer. We need to be able to change our statutes to more accurately reflect that and to give the tools to the Attorney General to go out and cure a lot of these issues that many of our constituents are facing. Consumers who have experienced issues caused by these loopholes are doing the right thing. They're calling their Attorney General, asking for assistance. They're calling us in government, asking for assistance. They're using their state agencies and laws which exist to advocate on their behalf. We want to make sure that our Attorney General, we want to make sure that her hands are not tied and that she actually has the tools to be able to go after unscrupulous dealers and to protect consumers. This is good consumer protection, Mr. President. And when we talk about consumer protection like we are with a few different bills here today, we know that good consumer protection is invisible, it's seamless. Doesn't need to get in the way of transactions or cost money, but it needs to be there. It needs to be there and it needs to be bold. Quite simply, it makes our economy go. This legislation may not be the most exciting, doesn't have a fun acronym or any bells and whistles, but it simply fills a consumer protection gap. I'm proud of the work that the Senate has done under the leadership of the Senate President on this bill in the past. I'm proud that it's been brought to the floor again today, and I know that this is going to be protecting consumers every single day across Massachusetts, and we can be proud of that once again. I hope this year is the time that this bill gets to Governor Healey's desk, which we worked with to actually file the initial bill when she was Attorney General. We want to send this bill to her desk to get done. Once again, Mr. President, thank you. I know we have a pending amendment to take up momentarily as well, and I look forward to debating that. Thank you, Mr. President.